You're 12 years old, and you're hiding in the grain cellar beneath your family's hab unit on Agri-World Demeter VII. The musty smell of stored wheat surrounds you, familiar and comforting, or at least it was, until 10 minutes ago. Now every shadow seems to reach toward you with grasping fingers, and the silence above has become more terrifying than any sound could be. Your mother's voice drifts down through the floor panels, calling your name. But there's something wrong with the way she says it, a crack, a tremor that you've never heard before. She's trying to sound normal, trying to pretend this is just another game of hide-and-seek, but you know better. You've always known things you shouldn't know. Above you, engines thrum with a sound that makes your bones ache. Not the familiar growl of the cargo haulers that visit during harvest season, not the high whine of atmospheric craft. This is something else entirely, deeper, more resonant, like the heartbeat of some massive, predatory beast. The sound seems to vibrate through the very foundations of your world, and with it comes a presence that makes your mind recoil in instinctive terror. You press your hands against your ears, but it doesn't help. The sound isn't just entering through your ears, it's seeping into your thoughts, your dreams, your very soul. And with growing horror, you realize that this isn't the first time you've heard it. You've been hearing it in your nightmares for weeks now, getting closer, getting louder, until it finally became real. The black ships have come for you. What does it feel like when you first understand that you're different? Not special, not gifted, different in a way that marks you for a fate you don't yet comprehend. For you, it started 3 months ago with the dreams. Vivid, impossible dreams where you could feel the thoughts of everyone in your settlement pressing against your mind like a symphony of screaming voices. You'd wake up knowing things, knowing that Farmer Hendricks was beating his wife again, knowing that the ecclesiarch was skimming from the tithe, knowing secrets that no 12-year-old should ever possess. You tried to tell your parents, but the words died in your throat every time. Because somehow, even at 12, you understood that this knowledge was dangerous. That being able to hear the thoughts of others was not a blessing, but a curse that would bring terrible men in terrible ships to your door. And now they're here. Footsteps echo through your family's hab unit above, too heavy to be your parents', too measured to be normal. These are the steps of people who have done this 1,000 times before, who know exactly where to look and what they're looking for. You hear furniture being moved, the soft whisper of scanning equipment, the low murmur of voices speaking in Gothic that your young mind somehow understands perfectly. Confirmed psychic resonance in this dwelling. Strength, considerable. Age estimated between 10 and 15 standard years. The voice is flat, emotionless, filtered through a Vox grill that strips away any trace of humanity. These aren't people coming for you, they're collectors, come to claim their latest acquisition. Your mother's sobs break through the floor like physical blows. She knows. They all know now. The strange child who always seemed to know things, who would sometimes stare at empty spaces as if seeing invisible people, who would wake up screaming about fires that hadn't happened yet. You're not just different, you're psychic. And in the grim darkness of the far future, being psychic means only one thing. You belong to the Emperor now. The cellar door above you creaks open, and pale light spills down into your hiding place. You can smell them now, the distinctive scent of recycled air, sacred oils, and something else. Something metallic and cold that makes your psychic senses recoil in horror. It's the smell of psychic dampening fields, of null circuits and psi-suppressors, of machinery designed to cage minds like yours. Child. The voice comes from above, neither cruel nor kind, simply implacable. You will come with us now. You want to run. Every instinct screams at you to flee, to fight, to do anything but climb those wooden steps toward the pale figures waiting above. But your legs move without your permission, carrying you upward as if controlled by some external force. Because they are controlled, these people, these things in their black uniforms and featureless masks, they have ways of ensuring compliance. As you emerge from the cellar, you see them for the first time. Adeptus Astra telepathica agents, clad in midnight black carapace armor that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their faces are hidden behind smooth, skull-like masks that show no expression, no hint of the humanity that might once have existed beneath. They move with mechanical precision, each gesture calculated for maximum efficiency. One of them extends a device toward you, a small, crystalline apparatus that hums with barely contained energy. The moment it activates, you feel your mind contract violently, as if someone has wrapped chains around your thoughts and pulled them tight. The constant whisper of other minds that has haunted you for months suddenly falls silent, leaving you feeling deaf and blind and utterly alone inside your own skull. Psychic potential confirmed, the agent reports into a Voxcom. Classification: Theta level minimum, possibly higher. Recommend immediate extraction for processing. Processing. The word hangs in the air like a death sentence, though you don't yet understand why. Your parents stand in the corner of your family's main room, holding each other as if they're drowning and the other is their only lifeline. Your father, strong, dependable, the man who taught you to work the grain harvesters and told you stories of the God Emperor's glory, looks smaller now, diminished, as if something vital has been drained out of him. Your mother hasn't stopped crying since the agents entered your home. "Please," she whispers, her voice raw with desperation. "Please, he's just a child. He doesn't understand what he is. We can teach him to control it, we can." The child's psychic development has progressed beyond containment, the lead agent interrupts, its voice carrying no more emotion than a cogitator reciting data. Failure to extract at this stage would result in manifestation events leading to potential demonic incursion. The risk to this population center is unacceptable. You don't understand all the words, but you understand the tone. You understand that you've become something dangerous, something that could hurt the people you love simply by existing near them. The knowledge hits you like a physical blow because you realize it's true. Those dreams, those visions, they've been getting stronger, more vivid, more real. Last week, you dreamed of fire consuming the grain silos, and the next morning you found scorch marks on the walls that hadn't been there the night before. You're not just psychic, you're dangerous. One of the agents produces a set of restraints unlike anything you've ever seen. They look almost organic, crafted from some dark metal that seems to pulse with its own inner life. The moment they snap around your wrists, the last vestiges of your psychic abilities vanish completely, leaving you feeling hollow and empty, like a musical instrument with all its strings cut. The child will be transported to the nearest collection facility, the lead agent announces. From there, processing will determine optimal utilization of psychic resources. The Imperium thanks you for your contribution to humanity's survival. Optimal utilization. The phrase means nothing to you now, but it will haunt your dreams for the rest of your very short life. Your mother breaks free from your father's grip and rushes toward you, her hands reaching out as if she could somehow hold you here through sheer force of will. But one of the agents steps between you, and she stops as if she struck an invisible wall. You can see her lips moving, forming your name over and over again, but no sound emerges. They've activated a localized silence field, cutting off even the possibility of final words. As they lead you toward the door, you turn back once to look at your parents. Your father has aged 10 years in 10 minutes, his face gray with the knowledge that he's powerless to protect his own child. Your mother has collapsed to her knees, her silent sobs shaking her entire body. You want to tell them that you love them. You want to promise that you'll come back someday. You want to say that you're sorry for being born wrong, for being dangerous, for bringing this horror into their lives. But the restraints around your wrists do more than suppress your psychic abilities. They make speech impossible, reduce you to nothing more than cargo to be transported. You can only watch as your childhood, your family, your entire world disappears behind you. The black ship looms on the horizon like a monument to despair. Even at this distance, it dwarfs everything else in sight. A vast, angular monstrosity of midnight black metal that seems to devour light itself. Strange geometries writhe along its hull, patterns that make your eyes water when you look at them directly. This is a vessel designed not just for transportation, but for containment, for carrying cargo that might tear reality apart if inadequately secured. As the transport carries you closer, you begin to hear them. Voices, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all crying out in psychic unison from within the ship's holds. Children like you, taken from their homes, their families, their lives, all being carried toward the same destination. Toward Terra, toward the Golden Throne, toward a fate that will make everything you've suffered so far seem like mercy. The last thing you see of your homeworld is the smoke rising from your family's hab unit. Not from fire, from the ritual cleansing that follows every psychic extraction. The agents are burning everything you've ever touched, everything that might carry a trace of your psychic resonance. Even your memory is being erased from this place, as if you never existed at all. How do you process being chosen for a fate worse than death in service to humanity's survival? You don't. You can't. You're 12 years old, and the only thing you understand is that you'll never see your mother's smile again, never help your father with the harvest, never grow up to have a family of your own. You've become ammunition in a war you don't understand, fuel for a machine whose hunger will never be satisfied. And this is only the beginning. You've been aboard the Black Ship for 3 days now, and you're beginning to understand the true scale of what you've become part of. The ship's holds contain nearly 2,000 psykers, ranging in age from children barely old enough to walk to adults whose minds have been shattered by decades of psychic suppression. You're all cargo now, human fuel being transported to feed a machine that most of the galaxy worships as divine. But let's step back from your personal horror for a moment and examine the larger picture, the cosmic machinery of which you're now a single, expendable component. The Golden Throne of Terra consumes exactly 1,000 psykers every single day. Not approximately 1,000. Not usually around 1,000. Exactly 1,000, measured out with the precision of a chronometer, because the Emperor's continued existence depends on this precise intake of psychic energy. Any less, and the Astronomican, humanity's lighthouse in the warp, begins to dim. Any more, and the delicate balance maintaining the master of mankind's consciousness becomes unstable. Do the mathematics. 1,000 souls per day, multiplied by 365 days per year, multiplied by 10,000 years since the Emperor was enthroned after the Horus Heresy. That's 365 billion human beings who have been fed, alive and screaming, into the golden maw of humanity's salvation. 365 billion. To put that number in perspective, imagine your entire homeworld, every man, woman, and child you've ever known or could ever know, being wiped from existence. Now imagine doing that to 1,000 different worlds. That's the scale of sacrifice the Golden Throne has demanded, and it's barely a fraction of what it will require before the end. The ship you're traveling on makes this journey 12 times per year, carrying its cargo of souls from the outer reaches of Segmentum Solar directly to Terra. It's one of hundreds of such vessels, all following carefully planned routes designed to ensure that the daily quota is never missed. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica has turned the harvesting of human psychics into a science so precise that actuarial tables exist showing exactly how many children must be taken from each world to maintain the flow. You are not a person anymore. You're a statistic, a resource to be allocated according to the needs of the Imperium. But the Golden Throne isn't just some ancient machine that happens to require psychic energy to function. Understanding its true nature requires grappling with a horror so profound that most Imperial citizens never even attempt it. The Golden Throne is alive, not in any biological sense, but in the way that a parasite is alive, sustained by the host it consumes. When Magnus the Red shattered the psychic wards protecting Terra during the Horus Heresy, he tore open a permanent wound in reality directly beneath the Imperial Palace. The Golden Throne was originally designed to be a psychic beacon, a way for the Emperor to guide humanity through the warp without requiring constant physical presence. But Magnus's breach turned it into something else entirely. A psychic dam holding back an ocean of chaos, powered by the constant sacrifice of human souls. Every day, for 10,000 years, 1,000 psykers have been led into the depths of the hollow mountain. Every day, their life force has been drained away to feed the corpse thing that was once the emperor of mankind. Every day, their screams have joined the eternal chorus that surrounds the golden throne like a psychic atmosphere of suffering. And every day, their sacrifice has prevented the slow extinction of the human race. What does it mean to be fuel for such a machine? It means that your individual consciousness, your hopes and dreams and fears, your memories of home and family, all of it becomes nothing more than energy to be converted and consumed. The process doesn't simply kill you, it unmakes you, reducing everything you are and ever could be to raw psychic power fed into the Emperor's dying flesh. But here's the truly horrifying part. It's not just random selection. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica has spent 10 millennia perfecting the art of choosing exactly the right psykers for consumption. They don't want the weak ones, those barely register on the Golden Throne's hunger. They don't want the insane ones. Damaged goods burn inefficiently and sometimes explosively. They want children. Young, strong, terrified children whose psychic potential is just beginning to bloom. Children like you, whose minds haven't yet learned to properly shield themselves, whose raw terror amplifies their psychic output exponentially. The fear itself becomes part of the fuel, the despair and confusion and helpless rage all converting into energy that feeds the thing on the Golden Throne. You're not just going to die. You're going to die in exactly the way that will produce the maximum possible psychic energy from your death. Every aspect of your suffering has been calculated, measured, optimized for efficiency. The Adeptus Mechanicus has entire forge worlds dedicated to producing the specialized equipment needed to harvest and process psychic energy. Tech priests spend their entire lives studying the precise resonance frequencies that cause a psyker's soul to release its power most completely. They've developed restraints that amplify fear, chambers that focus psychic energy like lenses focusing light, and monitoring devices that can measure a soul's burn rate down to the smallest fraction. They've turned murder into a science, and they've been perfecting that science for 10,000 years. The religious justification for this horror is almost as elaborate as the technical implementation. The ecclesiarchy teaches that to be chosen for the Golden Throne is the highest honor a human can achieve, to literally become one with the God Emperor, to join the eternal choir of saints that surrounds his holy presence. Cathedral spires across the galaxy ring with hymns praising the sacrifice of the psykers, and countless trillions of faithful humans pray daily for the souls being consumed in service to the Emperor's glory. But what would those faithful think if they could see the reality? What would they think if they could witness the actual process of feeding psykers to the Golden Throne? The convulsions, the screaming, the way a human being comes apart when their soul is forcibly extracted from their body. What would they think if they understood that their God Emperor is sustained not by willing martyrs achieving blessed union with divinity, but by terrified children being burned alive from the inside out? The answer, of course, is that most of them would think exactly what they think now. Because the alternative, admitting that humanity's survival depends on systematic child sacrifice, is too horrifying for most minds to accept. It's easier to believe in noble martyrdom than to confront the reality of cosmic-scale atrocity. And so the machine continues. Every day, black ships dock at the ports of the Hollow Mountain. Every day, cargo holds full of screaming psykers are unloaded and processed with industrial efficiency. Every day, 1,000 souls are fed into the Golden Maw, and 1,000 new spaces are created for tomorrow's harvest. The system is so refined, so precisely calibrated, that it can adjust for variables across the galaxy. When a particularly rich vein of psykers is discovered on some distant world, the quotas are adjusted accordingly. When a chaos incursion results in the loss of several transport ships, backup vessels are automatically deployed to maintain the flow. When the Golden Throne's hunger fluctuates, usually in response to increased warp activity or threats to Terra itself, the daily quotas are increased to compensate. You are part of the most sophisticated logistical operation in human history. An operation whose sole purpose is to ensure that enough people die in exactly the right way to keep one corpse from finally rotting away. As your ship approaches Terra, you can begin to feel it, the psychic weight of the Golden Throne pressing down like a vast, hungry presence. It's not malicious, exactly. Malice requires intention, personality, some spark of consciousness that chooses to cause harm. The hunger you feel is more fundamental than that, more terrifying. It's the simple, endless need of a thing that exists only to consume. Through the reinforced viewports of the transport hold, you catch your first glimpse of humanity's throne world. Terra is a monument to excess and decay, its surface covered with architectural nightmares that stretch from the planet's core to well beyond its original atmosphere. Hive spires pierce the void like metallic thorns, while the vast bulk of the imperial palace spreads across entire continents like a technological cancer. And somewhere deep beneath all of that constructed madness, in chambers that haven't seen natural light for 10,000 years, the Golden Throne waits. It's hungry. It's always hungry. And you're about to learn exactly what it means to be food for a god. But first, you have to survive the journey through the ship's holds, the processing centers, and the final waiting chambers. You have to endure days or weeks of knowing exactly what's going to happen to you, surrounded by others who share your fate. How long can the human mind maintain hope in the face of absolute certainty? How long can you continue to believe that somehow, some way, you might escape the destiny that's been planned for you since the moment your psychic abilities first manifested? You're about to find out, and the answer will break your heart. The holds of the Black Ship are worse than any nightmare your 12-year-old mind could have conceived. Imagine a space designed to contain nearly 2,000 human beings with the same consideration given to storing ammunition or bulk cargo, which, from the Imperium's perspective, is exactly what you are. The ceiling hangs barely 2 meters above the floor, forcing even the shortest adults to stoop. The walls are lined with restraint alcoves, each one sized for a single psyker, each one equipped with null-field projectors that make thinking feel like trying to breathe underwater. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, fear sweat, and the metallic tang of psychic suppression fields operating at maximum capacity. You've been assigned Alcove 847B, sandwiched between a girl who looks about your age and a woman whose hair has gone completely white despite her apparently young face. The girl hasn't spoken since you arrived 3 days ago. She just stares at the wall with eyes that have seen too much. The woman whispers constantly under her breath, a stream of numbers and calculations that take you a while to understand. She's counting. Days, hours, minutes, trying to calculate how long it will take to reach Terra, how long the processing will take, how much time she has left before the end. It's a futile exercise. The ship's course and schedule are classified even from its crew, but it's the only way she can maintain the illusion of control over her fate. What does it feel like to have your humanity slowly stripped away? It starts with your name. 3 days aboard the ship, and already the crew refers to you only by your alcove number. 847B, report for feeding. 847B, present for psychic suppression maintenance. 847B, prepare for medical examination. The medical examinations are particularly degrading. Every few days, servitors drift through the holds, scanning each psyker with instruments that feel like icy fingers probing inside your skull. They're not checking your health, they're assessing your psychic potential, measuring how much energy you'll release when you're finally consumed. The servitors record their findings on data slates with mechanical precision, reducing your entire existence to a few numbers on a spreadsheet. Psychic potential, Theta class, estimated burn duration for 7 minutes, projected energy output 847 Imperial Standard Psychic Units. That's what you are now. 847 units of psychic energy, packaged in a 12-year-old body, scheduled for delivery to the Golden Throne. The feeding schedule is another layer of dehumanization. Twice daily, Servitors distribute nutrition paste through tubes that connect directly to your restraint alcove. The paste has no flavor, no texture, nothing that might remind you of actual food. It's designed solely to maintain your body's biological functions at minimum acceptable levels, just healthy enough to burn efficiently when the time comes. Some of the older psykers have learned to make conversation during feeding times, sharing stories about their homes, their families, their lives before the black ships came. But these conversations never last long. The null fields make extended communication exhausting, and besides, what's the point of forming connections with people you'll never see again? Because that's another horrible truth you're beginning to understand. Even if some of you survive the journey to Terra, even if some of you are selected for other purposes, to become astropaths or sanctioned psykers or whatever other fates the Imperium has planned, you'll never see each other again. The processing centers on Terra are designed to separate arriving psykers immediately, to prevent the formation of bonds that might make them harder to control. You're not just losing your life, you're losing any possibility of human connection in your final days. On your 4th day aboard the ship, you witness your first death. It's the woman in alcove 849B, 2 spaces down from you. She's been here longer than most. The crew calls her a veteran, which apparently means this is her 3rd journey to Terra. Somehow, she's survived the previous 2 trips, been found unsuitable for the Golden Throne, and been returned to the outer systems to await another collection. But her mind finally breaks during the night cycle. You hear it happening, a low moan that builds into a shriek, then explodes into psychic feedback that makes every suppression field in the hold overload simultaneously. For one terrifying moment, you can feel the thoughts of everyone around you flooding into your consciousness, a cacophony of fear and despair, and rage that threatens to drown your own identity completely. Then the emergency containment systems activate, flooding the hold with null energy so intense that several psykers immediately lose consciousness. When the chaos subsides, the woman in 849B is dead, her body rigid in her restraints, blood running from her eyes and nose. The servitors remove her corpse with the same mechanical efficiency they use for everything else. By the next feeding cycle, alcove 849B has been sterilized and prepared for the next occupant. It's as if she never existed at all. That's what happens when you fight it too long, whispers the girl in 848B, speaking for the first time since you arrived. Her voice is barely audible above the constant hum of the suppression fields. She was trying to hold on to who she was before. Trying to remember her name, her life, all of it. But that just makes the ending worse. You want to ask her what she means, but she's already retreated back into silence, her eyes returning to their fixed stare at the wall. It's during your 2nd week aboard that you meet Marcus. He's assigned to alcove 723A, in the section reserved for what the crew calls frequent flyers, psykers who have made this journey before and somehow survived. Marcus is on his 4th trip to Terra, and he's learned things that the first-timers haven't. The secret, he tells you during one of the brief periods when conversation is possible, is not to think of it as going to your death. Think of it as going to serve the Emperor. Really believe it, make yourself believe it, because the alternative is madness. He explains the classification system that awaits you on Terra. Most psykers, maybe 80%, are designated as thrown fuel and consumed within days of arrival. The others are sorted into various categories: astropath candidates, potential sanctioned psykers, research subjects for the Adeptus Biologicus, raw material for servitor conversion. The testing is brutal, Marcus continues, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. They hook machines directly into your brain, force you to demonstrate your abilities while recording everything. Most kids don't survive the first round of testing. The ones who do, well, let's just say that being selected for the throne might actually be the merciful option. What does hope feel like when it's been weaponized against you? Because that's what Marcus represents. The possibility that you might be one of the lucky ones. that you might be chosen for some fate other than immediate consumption. But every story he tells about the alternatives makes the Golden Throne sound more and more like a mercy killing. He tells you about the astropath conditioning process, where psykers are subjected to a ritual called soul binding that involves having their eyes burned out with psychic fire while they're psychically linked to the Emperor himself. Most candidates die during the process. Those who survive are left blind, scarred, and fundamentally changed, no longer entirely human. He tells you about the sanctioned psyker program, where promising candidates are implanted with explosive devices that will kill them instantly if they ever lose control of their abilities. They're then deployed to war zones across the galaxy, where their life expectancy is measured in months rather than years. He tells you about the research facilities where psykers are subjected to experiments designed to understand the nature of psychic abilities, experiments that make the Golden Throne's consumption look swift and painless by comparison. So you see, Marcus concludes with a bitter smile, we're all dead. The only question is how much we'll suffer before the end. But even Marcus, veteran of 4 journeys to Terra, doesn't know the full truth about what awaits you. He doesn't know about the holding cells beneath the throne chamber, where the daily 1,000 wait their turn with full knowledge of what's coming. He doesn't know about the preparation rituals, the ceremonial cleansing that's really just optimization for psychic energy extraction. He doesn't know about the moment of consumption itself, when a human consciousness is forcibly merged with something vast and alien and hungry. He doesn't know because no one who's experienced those things has ever lived to tell about them. The ship's crew treats you all with a mixture of professional detachment and barely concealed disgust. To them, you're dangerous cargo that must be handled carefully to prevent contamination or accident. They wear specialized gear when entering the holds, not just to protect themselves from potential psychic manifestations, but to avoid forming any emotional connection with their passengers. You overhear conversations between crew members sometimes, during shift changes or maintenance periods. They talk about efficiency ratings, transport quotas, the logistics of keeping 2,000 psykers alive and docile for weeks at a time. They never talk about you as people, only as units of cargo that require specific environmental conditions to maintain their value. Batch 847 is running a bit high on the anxiety meters, one might say to another. Might want to increase the null field intensity in Hold C. Copy that, any mortality this shift. 3 units expired in Hold B. Natural causes mostly, psychic feedback cascades, well within acceptable parameters. 3 units expired. Not 3 people died. 3 units of cargo became damaged and had to be written off as a loss. As the journey continues, you begin to understand why so many psykers simply give up and let themselves die. It's not just the physical conditions or the knowledge of what awaits you on Terra. It's the systematic destruction of everything that makes you human. Your name, your relationships, your sense of individual worth, your connection to anything beyond this metal coffin drifting through the void. By the time Terra finally appears in the viewports, many of your fellow passengers have already died inside. Their bodies still functioning, but their minds retreated so far into themselves that they might as well be corpses. The lucky ones manage to die physically as well, their hearts simply stopping as if they've made a conscious choice to escape before the worst can happen. But you're not that lucky. You're young, healthy, and your psychic potential burns too brightly to simply fade away. You're going to survive the journey. You're going to see Terra. You're going to walk into the processing centers and the holding cells, and finally, inevitably, into the presence of the thing that was once the Emperor of mankind. And when that moment comes, you're going to understand why some fates are worse than death. The ship's engines change pitch as you enter Terra's system, and you feel a new sensation, a psychic pressure, vast and hungry, pressing against the edges of your consciousness even through the null fields. It's the first taste of the Golden Throne's hunger, reaching out across space to welcome its newest meal. Welcome to Terra, 847. Be your Emperor is waiting. The processing facilities beneath the Imperial Palace are a monument to the Imperium's mastery of industrial-scale horror. Imagine a factory designed to categorize and prepare human beings for various forms of consumption, and you begin to approach the reality of what awaits every psyker who survives the journey to Terra. You're unloaded from the Black Ship along with nearly 2,000 other psykers, herded through corridors that stretch for kilometers beneath the hollow mountain. The architecture here is ancient beyond comprehension, walls carved from living rock, decorated with reliefs that hurt to look at directly, lit by lumens that cast shadows in directions that shouldn't exist. This place was old when the Emperor first walked among humanity, and it has been drinking blood and fear for longer than human civilization has existed. The first thing that strikes you is the scale. The processing centers can handle 100,000 psykers simultaneously, spread across facilities that extend deeper into Terra's crust than many hive cities reach into the sky. Conveyor systems transport groups of psykers between testing chambers with the efficiency of a manufactorum assembly line. Data streams flow constantly between monitoring stations, tracking the status of each individual psyker through every stage of evaluation and classification. You are now part of the largest and most sophisticated sorting operation in human history. An operation whose sole purpose is to determine the most efficient way to extract value from your life before ending it. Your first stop is the basic evaluation chamber, where servitors conduct preliminary scans to assess your psychic potential and physical condition. The chamber is a sterile white cube, empty except for the scanning equipment and the restraint chair where you're secured for the duration of the process. The scans themselves are agony. Imagine having your mind dissected by instruments that treat your thoughts like physical objects to be measured and cataloged. Every memory, every emotion, every spark of creativity or individuality is examined and assigned a value. The servitors recording the data don't care about your terror. They're only interested in how that terror affects your psychic output. Subject 847B, the lead servitor announces in its flat, mechanical voice. Age, 12 standard years. Psychic rating, Theta Plus with manifestations in precognition and telepathic reception. Physical condition, acceptable for all processing categories. Mental stability, declining but within normal parameters for first-time subjects. Mental stability, declining. After weeks aboard the Black Ship, after seeing other children die from psychic feedback, after beginning to understand what awaits you, the fact that your sanity is within normal parameters says more about imperial expectations than it does about your resilience. The preliminary evaluation takes 6 hours. 6 hours of having your mind probed by instruments that feel like red-hot needles. 6 hours of being forced to demonstrate your psychic abilities while machines record every detail of your performance. By the end, you're exhausted, bleeding from the nose, and several steps closer to the complete psychological breakdown that the servitors seem to expect. But you're still alive, which means you're still valuable. The next phase begins immediately. The secondary evaluation chambers are where the real sorting happens. Here, you're tested not just for psychic potential, but for specific applications of that potential. Can you maintain a psychic link across interplanetary distances? Can you channel destructive energy without burning out your own nervous system? Can you survive having your mind partially dissolved and rebuilt to serve imperial purposes? Each test is designed to push you to the absolute limits of your abilities and beyond. Many psykers don't survive this phase. Their minds burn out under the stress, their bodies collapse from psychic feedback, or they simply retreat so far into catatonia that they become useless for any purpose except consumption. You survive, though the cost is measured in pieces of your sanity that you'll never recover. During the telepathic stress test, you're forced to maintain mental contact with a servitor whose consciousness feels like broken glass grinding against your thoughts. During the precognitive evaluation, you're subjected to psychic stimulation that forces visions of possible futures, most of them showing your own death in excruciating detail. The worst test involves exposure to a Culexus assassin, one of the soulless blanks whose very presence causes psychic agony. For 30 minutes, you're restrained in the same chamber as this walking void, forced to endure the sensation of having your psychic abilities not just suppressed, but actively negated. It feels like drowning in reverse. Instead of being unable to breathe, you're unable to exist as anything more than a biological machine. When the testing is finally complete, you're assigned a classification that will determine the rest of your very short life. Thrown fuel, grade A2. What does it mean to be graded like a piece of meat? Grade A2 indicates that you're psychically powerful enough to burn efficiently in the Golden Throne, young enough that your terror will amplify your energy output, and stable enough that you won't die prematurely during the preparation process. Your premium fuel, selected specifically because your consumption will provide maximum benefit to the Emperor's continued existence. It's almost flattering, in the most horrible way possible. The classification process reveals the true scope of the Imperial psychic harvesting operation. Astropath candidates, maybe 1 in 1,000 of the psykers who reach Terra, are those with the specific combination of telepathic ability, mental resilience, and psychological flexibility needed to survive the soul-binding ritual. Most are adults, their minds already hardened by years of experience and suffering. Sanctioned psyker candidates are even rarer. These are psykers with combat-applicable abilities, who also possess the mental discipline needed to use those abilities without succumbing to chaos corruption. The selection process for sanctioned psykers is so rigorous that fewer than 50 are chosen each year from the hundreds of thousands of psykers who pass through the processing centers. The vast majority, including you, are designated as thrown fuel, but even within that category there are subcategories based on efficiency projections. Grade A psykers will burn brightest and longest, providing maximum psychic energy for the Golden Throne. Grade B psykers are suitable for standard consumption. Grade C psykers have reduced efficiency but are still acceptable for feeding purposes. Grade D psykers, the damaged, the weak, the mentally unstable, are used for other purposes. Some become raw material for servitor conversion. Others are delivered to the research facilities where tech priests study the nature of psychic abilities through live experimentation. A few are simply terminated immediately, their psychic energy harvested through more crude but immediate methods. You should feel grateful to be grade A2. It means your death will serve the Emperor directly, rather than being wasted on lesser purposes. The classification chamber where you receive your designation is a cathedral-like space, its vaulted ceiling disappearing into shadows high above. Thousands of psykers stand in orderly rows, each one awaiting the pronouncement that will seal their fate. Tech priests move between the rows like mechanical reapers, reading classification data from cogitator screens and directing each psyker toward their designated processing area. When your classification is announced, you're directed toward a corridor marked with high gothic text that translates roughly as primary fuel processing. The corridor is lined with other grade A psykers, children mostly, though some adults who have maintained their psychic potential despite years of suppression. All of you share the same look of numb acceptance. You've passed every test, survived every evaluation, and proven yourselves worthy of the highest honor the Imperium can bestow. You're going to be personally consumed by the God Emperor of mankind. The processing area for thrown fuel is a study in efficient horror. Assembly line stations prepare groups of psykers for final consumption, each stage designed to optimize the psychic energy that will be released during the feeding process. Medical servitors ensure that you're in perfect physical health. Malnutrition or disease can reduce energy output by as much as 15%. Psychic conditioning machines expose you to carefully calibrated stress stimuli, designed to maintain your terror at optimal levels without causing premature breakdown. They're not preparing you for death. They're preparing you for harvesting. You meet others during the processing phase, though forming connections is difficult when everyone knows they have only hours or days left to live. There's Maria, a girl from a forge world who can manipulate electromagnetic fields with her thoughts. There's Thomas, barely 8 years old, who can see through the eyes of anyone within a kilometer of his location. There's Sarah, whose precognitive abilities are so strong that she's been experiencing her own death in dreams for weeks. All of you are grade A. All of you are prime material for the Golden Throne's endless hunger. Sarah is the one who finally explains what you're all walking toward. She's seen it in her visions. The moment of consumption, the sensation of having your consciousness forcibly merged with something vast and alien and eternally hungry. She describes it in whispers during the rest periods between processing stages, her words painting pictures that will haunt your dreams for whatever time you have left. It doesn't just kill you, she explains, her voice barely audible above the constant humming of the facility's machinery. It takes everything you are and makes it part of something else. Your memories, your personality, your soul, all of it gets absorbed into the Emperor's consciousness. You become part of him, but you also disappear. The other children listen with the desperate attention of people grasping for any understanding of what awaits them. Sarah's visions aren't always accurate. Precognition is an imprecise art at best, but they're the only glimpse any of you have into the reality of the Golden Throne's feeding process. But here's the worst part, Sarah continues, her eyes distant with the weight of terrible knowledge. He knows. The Emperor, I mean. He experiences every death, feels every soul being consumed. He grieves for each of us, but he can't stop it. He needs us to die to keep himself alive, and the guilt of that need is part of what's been driving him insane for 10,000 years. What does it mean to be mourned by the thing that's going to kill you? It means that your death will be both necessary and tragic, both salvation and damnation, both the most important and most meaningless act of your life. The final processing stage involves assignment to holding cells beneath the throne chamber itself. These cells house the daily 1,000, the exact number of psykers who will be consumed in the next 24 hours to maintain the Emperor's existence and the Astronomican's light. As you're led through the corridors toward your final destination, you pass viewing stations where tech priests monitor the Golden Throne's status in real time. Massive screens display psychic energy levels, consciousness coherence readings, and consumption efficiency metrics. Everything about the Emperor's condition is reduced to numbers on displays, managed and optimized like any other industrial process. But occasionally, when the monitoring systems detect fluctuations in the Emperor's consciousness, the screens display something else entirely. Messages, fragments of thoughts, psychic impressions that leak through the barriers separating the master of mankind's awareness from the facility's monitoring equipment. Most of the messages are incomprehensible, fragments of memory from the dark age of technology, strategic calculations involving threats that exist on a galactic scale, philosophical meditations on the nature of humanity and its potential futures. But sometimes, rarely, the messages are simpler and more heartbreaking. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I remember all of you. There has to be another way. The tech priests dismiss these as psychic noise, random neural firing from a consciousness that's been dying for 10,000 years. But you know better. You can feel it yourself now, the vast presence pressing down from above, the weight of a mind that has been forced to consume children to maintain its existence, that has carried the guilt of billions of deaths while remaining powerless to stop the process that sustains its own life. The Emperor doesn't want to kill you, but he needs to. And that need has become its own form of torture, inflicted not just on you, but on the god thing you're going to become part of. As the cell door closes behind you, sealing you into the final holding area, you realize that you've been thinking about this all wrong. You're not walking toward death. You're walking toward a form of existence so alien and horrifying that death would be a mercy by comparison. In less than 24 hours, you'll learn what it means to become part of something that transcends individual identity while remaining trapped within it forever. You'll learn what it means to feed the Golden Throne. And once you learn, you'll never be able to forget. 23 hours and 47 minutes until feeding time. The countdown display above your cell door updates every second, each number bringing you closer to the moment when you'll be led into the presence of the Golden Throne. 23 hours and 46 minutes. 23 hours and 45 minutes. What does time feel like when you know exactly when it will end? The holding cells beneath the throne chamber are a masterpiece of psychological torture disguised as sacred preparation chambers. Each cell is exactly 3 meters by 3 meters by 3 meters, large enough to prevent immediate claustrophobia, small enough to ensure you never forget you're caged. The walls are made of polished black stone that seems to absorb light, covered with inscriptions in high Gothic that speak of sacrifice, duty, and the glory of union with the God Emperor. You share your cell with 3 other Grade A psykers. Maria, the girl from the Forge world who can manipulate electromagnetic fields. Thomas, the 8-year-old with enhanced perception abilities. And David, a teenager whose psychic talents manifest as pyrokinesis. All of you have been classified as optimal fuel for the Golden Throne's hunger. 23 hours and 32 minutes. The cells are designed to maintain you in perfect physical and psychological condition, right up until the moment of consumption. The air circulation system filters out contaminants while maintaining optimal humidity and temperature. The nutrition dispensers provide meals calculated to maximize psychic energy output, not the flavorless paste from the black ships, but actual food designed to keep you healthy and alert. They want you aware and terrified when the end comes. Fear amplifies psychic output by an average of 37%. First time. David asks, though he already knows the answer. Veterans of the holding cells, psykers who have been selected for consumption before but somehow survived the process, have a haunted look that's unmistakable. You're all first-timers here, which means none of you really understand what's waiting above in the throne chamber. Thomas hasn't spoken since being placed in the cell. He sits in the corner, his knees drawn up to his chest, his extraordinary perception abilities apparently focused inward. You wonder what he's seeing with those enhanced senses, whether he can perceive the psychic machinery of the Golden Throne above, whether he can feel the presence of the thing that was once the Emperor. Maria tries to maintain conversation, perhaps believing that human connection might somehow protect her from what's coming. She tells stories about her home on Metalica, about the forged temples where she learned to commune with machine spirits, about the family she'll never see again. Her words are brave, but her hands shake constantly, and the electromagnetic fields around her fluctuate with barely controlled terror. 23 hours and 4 minutes. The viewing ports in each cell offer a direct line of sight to the throne chamber above. Through reinforced crystal panels, you can see the daily feeding taking place. Watch as the previous 1,000 psykers are led into the presence of the Golden Throne and consumed one by one. The process is too distant to make out individual details, but you can see the flashes of golden light that mark each consumption. Hear the psychic screams that penetrate even the cell's soundproofing. Tomorrow, that will be you. The feeding process follows a precise schedule that's been refined over 10 millennia. Every day at exactly 12:00 Terra Standard Time, the first group of 100 psykers is led from the holding cells into the throne chamber. Every 6 minutes, another group follows. The entire process takes exactly 1 hour, consuming precisely 1,000 souls in 60 minutes of carefully orchestrated horror. You watch through the viewing port as today's feeding begins. The psykers look small and fragile as they're escorted by towering custodians across the vast floor of the throne chamber. Even at this distance, you can see their terror, the way they huddle together as they approach the Golden Throne's radiance. The first group reaches the base of the Golden Throne, and the consumption begins. The flash of golden light is visible even through the protective filters on the viewing port. For a moment, the entire throne chamber is illuminated with psychic fire, and you feel the echo of it in your own mind. A brief, overwhelming sensation of dissolution and transformation. When the light fades, the 100 psykers are gone. their psychic energy absorbed into the vast machinery that keeps the Emperor's consciousness coherent. In less than 24 hours, you'll experience that dissolution from the inside. 22 hours and 18 minutes. As the day progresses, you begin to understand the rhythm of life in the holding cells. Every few hours, servitors arrive to conduct medical examinations, ensuring that each psyker remains in optimal condition for consumption. The examinations are thorough and invasive: blood samples, neural scans, psychic resonance tests. Any sign of illness or degradation results in immediate medical intervention. The Imperium has invested too much in transporting and processing you to allow your value to decrease in the final hours. Nutrition is delivered on a precise schedule designed to maintain peak energy levels. The food is actually good: real protein, fresh vegetables, even desserts designed to provide specific vitamins and minerals that enhance psychic conductivity. It's the best meal you've had since leaving your home world, which makes it all the more surreal. They're feeding you like a prize animal being prepared for slaughter, which, of course, is exactly what you are. The psychological conditioning continues even here in the holding cells. Recorded hymns play constantly from hidden speakers, praising the glory of sacrifice and the honor of union with the God Emperor. The walls display rotating imagery of the Emperor in various heroic poses, accompanied by inspirational text about duty, service, and the nobility of giving one's life for humanity's survival. But the most effective psychological conditioning comes from the other psykers who have been here longer. Some of the cells house veteran psykers, individuals who have been through the selection process multiple times, who have somehow survived consumption attempts and been returned to the holding cells to await another feeding. 21 hours and 55 minutes. You meet one of them during the evening meal period, when the cell doors are briefly opened to allow interaction between psykers. Her name is Alina, and she's been selected for consumption 17 times over the past 3 years. 17 times, she's been led into the throne chamber and prepared for feeding. 17 times, something has gone wrong with the process, and she's been returned to the holding cells to await another attempt. The worst part, Alina explains in a voice that sounds like it's been scraped raw, isn't the pain. The pain is actually brief, just a few seconds of absolute agony as your soul is torn from your body. The worst part is the moment just before, when you feel the Emperor's presence and realize what you're about to become part of. She describes the sensation in terms that make your mind recoil. The Emperor's consciousness isn't a single, unified entity. It's a roiling mass of billions of consumed souls, all of them aware, all of them screaming, all of them trapped within something that's no longer entirely human. When you're fed to the golden throne, you don't die. You join that eternal chorus of suffering, becoming one voice in a symphony of souls that will never know peace. He tries to protect us, Alina continues, her eyes distant with the memory of 17 failed consumptions. The Emperor, I mean. Some part of him fights against the feeding process, tries to shield each new soul from the worst of the absorption. But he's too weak now, too fragmented. Most of the time, he can barely maintain his own consciousness, let alone protect ours. 21 hours and 7 minutes. The night cycle brings little rest. The countdown display continues its relentless march toward zero, and the psychic pressure from the golden throne above makes sleep nearly impossible. When you do manage to drift off, you're plagued by dreams that might not be dreams at all, visions of the Emperor's past, fragments of memory from the billions of souls he's consumed, glimpses of the cosmic horror that your death will help maintain. In one dream, you see the Emperor as he was during the Great Crusade, a towering figure of golden light, leading humanity to glory among the stars. In another, you see him chained to the golden throne, his flesh rotting away while his consciousness struggles to maintain coherence across 10,000 years of agony. In the worst dream, you see yourself as part of him, your individual identity dissolved into something vast and alien and eternally hungry. You wake screaming, only to find that Thomas has been screaming too. His enhanced perception has been showing him the same visions, the same impossible perspectives on what awaits all of you. Maria holds him while he sobs, her own electromagnetic field fluctuating wildly in response to her emotional state. David doesn't sleep at all. He spends the night staring at the countdown display, his pyrokinetic abilities manifesting as small flames that dance around his fingers. The flames burn with psychic energy, and you realize he's unconsciously preparing for what's coming, trying to burn away his fear, his memories, everything that makes him individual and vulnerable. 18 hours and 23 minutes. Dawn brings the daily feeding ceremony, and you watch through the viewing port as another 1,000 psykers are consumed by the Golden Throne. Today's group includes children even younger than Thomas, their terror visible even at this distance. You see them hesitate at the base of the Golden Throne, see the custodians gently but inexorably guide them forward into the consuming light. Tomorrow, those custodians will be guiding you. The custodians themselves are fascinating in their terrible perfection. These are the Emperor's personal bodyguards, genetically enhanced warriors who have served at his side for 10,000 years. They've witnessed every feeding ceremony, escorted millions of psykers to their consumption, and maintained their duty despite knowing the full horror of what they're facilitating. You wonder what it costs them psychologically to be part of this process. Do they feel guilt for their role in the systematic sacrifice of children? Do they question whether humanity's survival justifies such horror? Or have they transcended such concerns, becoming as mechanical in their duty as the servitors who maintain the Golden Throne's machinery? Through the viewing port, you see one of the custodians pause after the feeding is complete. For just a moment, his perfect composure seems to crack, and you catch a glimpse of something that might be grief or regret. Then the moment passes, and he returns to his station with the same implacable professionalism that sustained the Imperium for 10 millennia. Even the Emperor's angels weep for what they must do. 12 hours and 41 minutes. The afternoon brings visits from various Imperial officials, tech priests who want to review your psychic compatibility ratings, ecclesiarchy representatives who offer final rites and spiritual counseling, administrative personnel who verify your identity and classification codes. All of them treat you with a mixture of reverence and clinical detachment, as if you're simultaneously sacred and expendable. The spiritual counseling is particularly surreal. A priest offers to hear your final confession, to provide absolution for any sins you might have committed in your 12 years of life. He speaks in platitudes about the glory of martyrdom, the honor of serving the God Emperor directly, the eternal reward that awaits those who sacrifice themselves for humanity's survival. But what sins could you possibly have committed? You're 12 years old. Your greatest transgression was being born with abilities you didn't choose and couldn't control. Yet the priest treats your consumption as if it's a moral choice, a noble sacrifice rather than a systematic execution. 9 hours and 17 minutes. Evening brings the final meal, a feast designed to optimize your psychic energy for consumption. The food is extraordinary. Real meat from Terra's agridomes, vegetables grown in the Imperial Palace's own gardens, fruits imported from across the galaxy. Every dish is prepared according to recipes developed over millennia to enhance psychic conductivity and ensure maximum energy output during the feeding process. You eat mechanically, your mind focused on the countdown display that continues its relentless advance towards zero. Thomas refuses to eat at all, while Maria forces herself to consume every bite out of some misguided sense of duty. David eats with fierce intensity, as if he's trying to burn away his humanity through sheer force of will. This is your last meal. Savor it, because in a few hours, you'll never taste anything again. 6 hours and 53 minutes. The preparation rituals begin in earnest now. Servitors arrive to escort you to the ceremonial cleansing chambers, where you're bathed in waters blessed by the ecclesiarchy and anointed with oils that enhance psychic resonance. The cleansing is thorough and impersonal. Your body is scrubbed clean of any contamination that might interfere with the consumption process. then clothed in simple white robes that will burn away cleanly when your psychic energy is released. The robes are inscribed with prayers in high Gothic, asking the Emperor to accept your sacrifice and transform your death into light that will guide humanity through the darkness. Reading the prayers, you're struck by their desperate hope, as if the people who wrote them were trying to convince themselves that what they're doing serves some greater purpose. Perhaps it does. Perhaps your death will help maintain the Astronomican that guides Imperial vessels safely through the warp. Perhaps your sacrifice will buy humanity another day of existence in a galaxy that wants nothing more than to devour it completely. But that doesn't make it any less horrifying. 3 hours and 12 minutes. The final holding area is a circular chamber directly beneath the Golden Throne, its ceiling open to provide a clear view of the massive machinery above. Here, the daily 1,000 gather for their final hours, arranged in precise groups that will be fed to the throne in carefully timed intervals. You're assigned to Group 7, which means you'll be among the 7th wave of psykers consumed today. Groups 1 through 6 will go before you, giving you the opportunity to watch the process from close range, to see exactly what awaits you when your time comes. Knowledge, in this case, is not power. It's just another form of torture. The psychic pressure here is overwhelming, even through the suppression fields that keep the assembled psykers from accidentally triggering each other's abilities. You can feel the Golden Throne's hunger like a physical weight pressing down on your consciousness, and beyond that, something even more terrifying, the presence of the Emperor himself, vast and ancient and utterly alien. 1 hour and 37 minutes. The feeding begins. Group 1, 100 psykers ranging in age from 8 to 16, is escorted by custodians toward the base of the Golden Throne. You watch as they climb the steps carved into the ancient machinery, their white robes bright against the dark metal and corrupted flesh of the device that will consume them. At the apex of the Golden Throne sits the Emperor himself, or what remains of him. The figure is barely recognizable as human, a desiccated corpse held together by machinery and psychic energy, its flesh rotted away in places to reveal the gleaming devices that maintain its existence. Golden light pulses through tubes and cables that connect the body to the vast engines surrounding it, and psychic fire flickers around the empty sockets where eyes once existed. This is your god. This is what you're dying to preserve. The consumption begins with the activation of psychic resonance amplifiers built into the Golden Throne itself. The effect on the assembled psykers is immediate and horrible. Their backs arch as their psychic energy is forcibly extracted, their mouths open in screams that you feel as much as hear. One by one, their life force is drawn into the Emperor's dying flesh, their souls absorbed into the vast collective consciousness that maintains his existence. The process takes exactly 6 minutes. When it's complete, Group 1 has vanished completely, their psychic energy converted into the power that keeps the Astronomican burning and the Emperor's consciousness coherent for another day. 53 minutes. Groups 2 through 6 follow in rapid succession, each consumption exactly the same as the last. You watch as hundreds of children are reduced to energy and memory, their individual identities dissolved into something that transcends personal existence while simultaneously destroying it. Soon, very soon, it will be your turn. The custodians approach Group 7 with the same gentle inevitability they've shown to all the others. These are not cruel men. They take no pleasure in what they're doing, show no sadism or enjoyment in the process. They're simply fulfilling a duty that must be performed, facilitating a sacrifice that's necessary for humanity's survival. 17 minutes. As you climb the steps toward the Golden Throne, you feel the psychic pressure intensify with each step. Your mind is flooded with impressions, memories, fragments of consciousness from the billions of souls that have been consumed before you. For a moment, you experience existence from the Emperor's perspective, the weight of 10,000 years, the agony of consuming innocent children to maintain your own existence, the terrible knowledge that this process must continue forever or humanity will fall to chaos. You understand now. The Emperor doesn't want to kill you. He needs to. and that need has become its own form of damnation. 11 minutes. At the base of the Golden Throne, you're positioned with the other members of Group 7 in a precise formation designed to optimize psychic energy extraction. The machinery around you hums with barely contained power, and you can feel the resonance amplifiers preparing to activate. This is it. This is the moment you've been moving toward since the black ships first came to your homeworld. 6 minutes. The amplifiers activate and the consumption begins. The sensation is indescribable, like having your soul torn from your body while remaining conscious throughout the process. Your individual identity begins to dissolve, your memories and personality merging with the vast collective consciousness that surrounds the Emperor's dying form. But in that moment of dissolution, you experience something unexpected. For just an instant, you feel the Emperor's grief for what he's done to you, his regret for the necessity that has driven him to consume billions of innocent souls. You feel his love for humanity, twisted and corrupted by 10,000 years of impossible choices, but still genuine beneath the horror. And you forgive him, because in that final moment, you understand that he's as much a victim of this cosmic horror as you are. Your consciousness expands, joining the eternal chorus of souls that maintain the Golden Throne's power. Your individual death becomes part of something vast and terrible and necessary, a single note in a symphony of sacrifice that will continue until the heat death of the universe. This is what it means to feed the Golden Throne. This is what it means to become light in the darkness. This is what it means to save humanity, one child at a time. 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. The amplifiers reach full activation, and your world explodes into golden fire. What does it feel like to have your soul torn from your body while you're still conscious enough to experience it? Imagine every nerve in your body being stripped away, layer by layer, while your consciousness remains perfectly intact throughout the process. Imagine your sense of individual identity dissolving like sugar in acid, your memories and personality breaking apart and reforming into something vast and alien and hungry. This is not death as humans understand it. Death implies an ending, a cessation of consciousness, a passage from existence into nothingness. What happens to you in this moment is something far more complex and horrifying, a transformation that destroys everything you are while preserving the essential spark of your consciousness for purposes you're only beginning to comprehend. The psychic resonance amplifiers built into the Golden Throne don't simply extract your life force. They unweave you at the most fundamental level, separating the psychic energy that comprises your soul from the biological matrix that housed it. Every thought you've ever had, every emotion you've ever felt, every dream and fear and hope that made you who you were, all of it becomes raw material to be processed and integrated into something infinitely larger than yourself. But you don't disappear. That would be mercy. Instead, your consciousness expands exponentially, suddenly encompassing perspectives and experiences that no human mind was ever meant to contain. For a terrifying instant, you see the galaxy as the Emperor sees it, 10,000 years of constant warfare, billions of worlds where humans struggle for survival against enemies that want nothing more than their complete annihilation. You see the chaos gods stirring in the warp, ancient entities of such malevolence that their mere attention can drive entire populations insane. You see the Tyranid hive fleets approaching from beyond the galactic rim, consuming everything in their path as they advance toward Terra. You see the Necrons awakening from their 60-million-year slumber, bringing with them technologies that could unravel the very fabric of reality. And you understand why the Emperor chose this fate for himself, and for you. Because without the Golden Throne, without the daily sacrifice of 1,000 psykers, without the Astronomican's light guiding Imperial vessels through the warp, humanity would have fallen to these threats millennia ago. Your death is not meaningless. It's the price of survival in a universe that offers no other options. But understanding doesn't make the experience any less horrifying. As your individual consciousness dissolves into the Emperor's collective awareness, you feel the presence of others, billions of souls who have undergone this same transformation, who have been consumed by the Golden Throne over the course of 10 millennia. They're all still here, still aware, still conscious of what they once were, even as they've become part of something infinitely larger. You hear their voices, a choir of the consumed singing in harmonies that human ears were never meant to perceive. Some of the voices are recent, psykers consumed yesterday, last week, last year, their memories of individual existence still sharp and painful. Others are ancient beyond comprehension, souls that have been part of the Emperor's consciousness since the earliest days after the Horus Heresy. All of them retain some fragment of their original identity, some core of selfhood that even the Golden Throne's consumption couldn't completely erase. And all of them are screaming, not from pain, though the process of integration causes agony beyond description. They're screaming from the knowledge of what they've become part of, the understanding of the cosmic horror that their sacrifice maintains. They're screaming because they can see what the Emperor sees, know what he knows, feel the weight of choices that no being should ever have to make. They're screaming because they understand that this is necessary, and that understanding is the worst torture of all. Your own voice joins the chorus now, adding your terror and confusion and desperate hope to the symphony of consumed souls. You try to hold on to your memories of home, of your parents, of the life you'll never live, but they're fading even as you struggle to preserve them. Not disappearing entirely, nothing ever truly disappears within the Emperor's consciousness, but becoming diluted, mixed with the memories and experiences of billions of others, until you can barely distinguish between what was yours and what belongs to the vast collective. Is this heaven or hell? The question forms in what remains of your individual mind, and the answer comes from the Emperor himself, a presence so vast and alien that even acknowledging it threatens to shatter what's left of your sanity. It's neither. It's necessity. Through the Emperor's awareness, you experience the moment of consumption from his perspective. You feel his grief as your consciousness is absorbed into his own, his regret for the necessity that forces him to devour children to maintain his existence. You feel the weight of every soul he's consumed, the accumulated guilt of 365 billion murders committed in service to humanity's survival. And you feel his love for each of you, twisted and corrupted by 10,000 years of impossible choices, but still genuine beneath the horror. The Emperor doesn't want to consume you. He never wanted to consume any of the billions of souls that comprise his consciousness. But the alternative, allowing the Golden Throne to fail, watching the Astronomican go dark, seeing humanity fall to chaos or xenos or its own fractured nature, is unthinkable. Your death is the price he pays to keep humanity alive, and his awareness of that price is the torture he endures for eternity. He remembers every single one of you, every name, every face, every life story cut short by the hunger of the Golden Throne. He carries your deaths as wounds that will never heal, guilt that will never fade, responsibility that will never end. As your consciousness settles into its new existence as part of the Emperor's awareness, you begin to understand the true scope of what you've become. You're not just energy feeding a machine. You're a living component of humanity's greatest protector, a single voice in a collective consciousness that spans the galaxy and guards against threats that would make the chaos gods seem like minor inconveniences. Through the Emperor's senses, you can perceive the warp as it truly is, not just a realm of psychic energy, but an ocean of pure malevolence where the slightest mistake can result in the consumption of entire worlds. You can feel the constant pressure of chaos entities trying to break through the barriers that protect real space, held back only by the Emperor's will, and the psychic energy provided by your sacrifice. Your death is literally holding reality together. But the knowledge brings no comfort, only a deeper understanding of the horror you've become part of. You can see the future stretching ahead, not just years or decades, but millennia of continued sacrifice, millions more psykers who will be consumed to maintain the balance that keeps humanity alive. The Golden Throne will never stop feeding, never stop demanding its daily tribute of souls, never stop converting children into the energy that powers humanity's survival. And you'll be conscious for all of it. Through the Emperor's awareness, you witness the daily cycle of the Astronomican, the lighthouse beacon that guides Imperial vessels through the warp. Every pulse of its light is powered by the psychic energy of consumed souls. Every navigation reading that saves an Imperial ship from being lost in the warp is purchased with the death of a psyker. You see the black ships arriving at distant worlds, their holds gradually filling with terrified children, whose only crime was being born with abilities they couldn't control. You see the processing centers preparing the next groups for consumption, the holding cells filling with psykers who don't yet understand what awaits them. You see the endless cycle perpetuating itself, generation after generation, the machinery of sacrifice grinding forward with mechanical inevitability. And you understand that it must continue, because the alternative is the extinction of the human race. The paradox is maddening in its perfect logical consistency. To preserve humanity, humanity must sacrifice its children. To maintain the light that guides Imperial vessels, innocent souls must be consumed. To prevent the victory of chaos, the Imperium must commit atrocities that would make the chaos gods proud. The Emperor's greatest achievement is also his greatest failure. His salvation of humanity required its damnation. As your individual consciousness settles into its new existence within the collective, you begin to lose track of where you end and the Emperor begins. Your memories become his memories, your experiences part of his vast storehouse of knowledge. But the process isn't complete. Some core of your identity remains intact, a spark of selfhood that even the Golden Throne's consumption couldn't entirely erase. You're still you, in some sense. But you're also part of something so much larger that the distinction becomes meaningless. Through the Emperor's senses, you perceive time differently now. Minutes stretch into hours, hours into days, days into years. You experience the passage of centuries as if they were moments, watching as the Imperium evolves and changes around the fixed point of the Golden Throne. You see Space Marine chapters rise and fall, see worlds conquered and lost, see humanity's endless struggle for survival in a galaxy that wants nothing more than to devour it completely. And through it all, the Golden Throne continues to feed. You witness the consumption of your fellow psykers from Group 7, watching as their consciousness join yours within the Emperor's awareness. Maria's electromagnetic abilities become part of the vast psychic matrix that powers the Astronomican. Thomas's enhanced perception adds to the Emperor's ability to monitor threats across the galaxy. David's pyrokinetic powers contribute to the psychic fire that holds the warp's influence at bay. All of you are still here, still aware, all of you part of something that transcends individual existence while simultaneously trapping you within it forever. The daily feeding continues around you, each new group of psykers adding their voices to the eternal chorus. Some adapt to their new existence with resigned acceptance. Others fight against the dissolution of their individual identity, struggling to maintain their sense of self within the vast collective. A few simply retreat into madness, their consciousness fragmenting under the weight of cosmic awareness they were never meant to possess. But none of you ever truly die. Death would be a mercy the Golden Throne doesn't provide. Through the Emperor's memories, you experience fragments of his past, glimpses of the being he was before the Golden Throne, before the Horus Heresy, before the necessity of consuming children to maintain his existence. You see him as a scientist and philosopher during humanity's golden age, driven by a vision of human potential that encompassed the stars themselves. You see his despair when that vision collapsed, when humanity's hubris led to the age of strife and the birth of chaos. You feel his determination to save what could be saved, to preserve some fragment of human civilization, even if the cost was unimaginable. And you understand that every choice he made, every atrocity he committed or allowed, was driven by love for a species that might not deserve such devotion. The Emperor's love for humanity is the most terrifying thing about him. It's not the abstract affection of a distant deity, but the desperate, possessive love of a parent watching his children destroy themselves. He would do anything to keep humanity alive, sacrifice billions of psykers, wage eternal war against the forces of chaos, maintain an empire built on foundations of systematic oppression and murder. His love is what makes him monstrous. His compassion is what makes him cruel. As your consciousness fully integrates into the Emperor's awareness, you feel the weight of responsibility settling onto what remains of your individual identity. You're not just a victim of the Golden Throne's hunger, you're a participant in humanity's survival, a willing component of the machinery that keeps the species alive. But willing is a generous interpretation. You never had a choice in any of this. Still, choice or no choice, you're part of it now. Your psychic energy flows through the conduits that power the Astronomican. Your consciousness adds to the collective will that holds chaos at bay. Your death contributes to the continuation of human civilization across 1,000,000 worlds. You've become light in the darkness, just as the inscriptions on your ceremonial robes promised. But the light burns with the fuel of consumed innocence, and its brilliance is purchased with the currency of children's souls. In your final moment of individual awareness, before your consciousness dissolves completely into the Emperor's collective, you experience one last emotion, not the fear or despair you expected, but something approaching gratitude. Not for the horror you've endured or the fate you've suffered, but for the understanding you've gained. You know why this had to happen. You understand the necessity that drives the Golden Throne's hunger. You've seen the alternatives and found them worse than the reality you've become part of. And perhaps that understanding is the cruelest torture of all, to be consumed by something you can't help but forgive. Your individual voice fades into the eternal chorus, your consciousness becoming one note in a symphony of souls that will sing until the end of time. You're dead, but you're not gone. You're consumed, but you're not destroyed. You're lost, but you're also found, part of something larger and more terrible and more necessary than anything your 12-year-old mind could have imagined. This is what it means to feed the Golden Throne. This is what it means to become part of the God Emperor's eternal existence. This is what it means to save humanity, one child at a time. And tomorrow, the hunger will demand to be fed again. The consumption is complete. Group 7 has been processed, their psychic energy absorbed into the vast machinery of the Golden Throne, their consciousness integrated into the Emperor's collective awareness. The resonance amplifiers power down with mechanical precision, their daily quota fulfilled exactly as it has been fulfilled every day for 10,000 years. But the story doesn't end with your death. It never ends. In holding cells scattered throughout the depths of the Hollow Mountain, 900 more psykers wait their turn. Children taken from 1,000 different worlds, all of them walking the same path you've just completed, all of them destined to join the eternal chorus that surrounds the Golden Throne. Tomorrow, they'll take your place in the consumption chambers. Tomorrow, they'll learn what it means to become light in the darkness. Tomorrow, they'll discover that some fates are worse than death. And the day after tomorrow, 900 more will take their place. This is the reality of the Golden Throne's hunger. It's not an aberration or an emergency measure, but the fundamental operating principle of human civilization in the 41st millennium. Every day, for 10,000 years, 1,000 psykers have been consumed to maintain the Emperor's existence. Every day, for potentially another 10,000 years, the process will continue with clockwork precision. The mathematics are inescapable. At the current rate of consumption, the Golden Throne will require 365,000 psykers per year, 365 million per decade, 36.5 million per century. Over the course of another 10 millennia, should humanity survive that long, the final count will exceed 7.3 billion souls consumed in service to the Emperor's continued existence. 3 billion children who will never grow up, never fall in love, never have children of their own, never experience anything beyond terror and pain, and the horror of being dissolved into something vast and hungry and alien. But step back further, and the true scope of the horror becomes apparent. The Golden Throne is not the only consumer of human psykers in the Imperium. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica processes millions more for conversion into astropaths, most of whom die during the soul-binding ritual. The Space Marine chapters recruit potential librarians from the same population, subjecting them to conditioning that has a survival rate of less than 1%. The Inquisition claims thousands of psykers annually for their own purposes, few of whom survive their first mission. The total number of psykers consumed by the Imperium each year approaches 10 million souls. 10 million children taken from their families, transported across the galaxy in conditions that would make livestock transport seem luxurious, processed through facilities that treat human beings as industrial resources, and then consumed, converted, or killed in service to an empire that considers their suffering a necessary sacrifice. This is the price of humanity's survival in the grim darkness of the far future. From the perspective of the Golden Throne, from your new perspective as part of the Emperor's consciousness, you can see the full scope of the harvesting operation. Black ships traverse carefully planned routes throughout the galaxy, their holds gradually filling with psykers destined for Terra. Processing centers on 100 different worlds sort and classify potential candidates. Training facilities across the Imperium prepare the lucky few who might survive long enough to serve in roles other than fuel. It's the most sophisticated logistics operation in human history, and its sole purpose is to ensure that enough children die in exactly the right way to keep one corpse from finally rotting away. The psychological cost of maintaining this system extends far beyond its direct victims. Consider the custodians who escort each group of psykers to their consumption, 10,000 years of shepherding children to their deaths, of maintaining perfect composure while participating in systematic murder. Consider the tech priests who maintain the Golden Throne's machinery, who monitor consumption efficiency ratings and calculate optimal psychic energy extraction rates. Consider the countless Imperial functionaries who process transport schedules, manage holding facilities, and ensure the smooth operation of humanity's greatest atrocity. How does a civilization maintain its sanity while committing genocide against its own children? The answer, of course, is that it doesn't maintain its sanity. The Imperium of the 41st millennium is a civilization that has been driven collectively insane by the necessities of survival. The systematic consumption of psykers is just one symptom of a deeper madness. The understanding that humanity's continued existence requires the abandonment of everything that makes existence worthwhile. Consider the parents who watch their children taken by the black ships, knowing they'll never see them again, but unable to resist, because resistance means death for entire communities. Consider the imperial citizens who pray daily for the souls being consumed in service to the Emperor's glory, creating elaborate theological justifications for horror they can't bear to confront directly. Consider the Emperor himself, forced to consume billions of innocent souls to maintain his existence, carrying the weight of each death while remaining powerless to change the system that sustains him. Through the Emperor's awareness, through your new existence as part of his consciousness, you can feel the toll this takes on him. Every day, he experiences the death of 1,000 psykers as if it were his own. Every day, he feels their terror, their confusion, their desperate hope that somehow they might be spared. Every day, he adds their voices to the chorus of guilt that has been driving him toward madness for 10 millennia. The Emperor doesn't want to be a god. He doesn't want to be worshipped. He doesn't want to consume children to maintain his existence. But the alternatives are worse than the reality, and so the machine continues to turn. The theological implications are staggering. The Imperium worships the Emperor as the God-Emperor of mankind, creator of miracles, protector of humanity, the divine force that holds chaos at bay. But the reality is that their God is a corpse sustained by child sacrifice, a consciousness held together by the systematic murder of innocents, a protector whose protection requires the very atrocities he once fought to prevent. What does it mean to worship a god who is simultaneously savior and monster, protector and predator, the source of both salvation and damnation? The ecclesiarchy has spent 10,000 years developing theological frameworks to justify this paradox. They speak of noble sacrifice, of willing martyrdom, of the honor of union with divine consciousness. They create elaborate rituals and ceremonies that transform systematic murder into sacred duty. They teach billions of imperial citizens to pray for the souls being consumed, while never acknowledging the horror of what those prayers are actually endorsing. It's the most sophisticated propaganda campaign in human history, designed to make genocide seem like grace. But even the most elaborate justifications can't hide the fundamental reality. Humanity's survival in the 41st millennium is purchased with the currency of its children's souls. Every imperial vessel that navigates safely through the warp does so because psykers died to power the Astronomican. Every world that remains free of chaos corruption does so because the emperors will hold the forces of darkness at bay, sustained by daily sacrifice. You are part of that sacrifice now. Your death powers the lighthouse that guides humanity through the darkness. From your new perspective within the emperor's consciousness, you can perceive the Astronomican as it truly is, not just a navigation beacon, but a psychic lighthouse whose light is composed of consumed souls. Every pulse of its radiance carries the dissolved consciousness of psykers like yourself, transformed into energy that penetrates the warp and provides safe passage for imperial vessels. Your death is literally holding the Imperium together, one photon at a time. But the most horrifying aspect of your new existence is the knowledge that it will never end. The Golden Throne doesn't offer the mercy of oblivion. Once consumed, you remain conscious within the Emperor's awareness forever. You'll experience every future consumption, feel every new soul being absorbed into the collective, witness the continuation of the cycle for millennia to come. You'll watch as millions more children follow the path you've taken. You'll feel their terror as they're selected by the black ships, experience their despair during the journey to Terra, share their final moments as they're consumed by the Golden Throne. And you'll understand that it's necessary. That understanding will be your torture for eternity. The cycle is already beginning again. Even as the golden fire of your consumption fades, new black ships are departing Terra with empty holds, heading for distant worlds where psykers wait unknowingly for their selection. Processing centers are preparing to receive new shipments of human cargo. Holding cells are being sterilized and prepared for the next 1,000 souls who will walk the path you've just completed. Tomorrow, another 1,000 will die. The day after, another 1,000. The day after that, another 1,000. The hunger never stops. The need never ends. The sacrifice continues forever. But perhaps the most tragic aspect of the entire system is that it might actually work. Through the Emperor's cosmic perspective, you can see the threats arrayed against humanity, chaos entities that would consume reality itself, xeno-species that view humans as nothing more than resources to be harvested, the fundamental hostility of a universe that seems designed to punish any species that dares to reach for the stars. Against such threats, maybe the systematic sacrifice of children is a reasonable price to pay for survival. Maybe. The question that haunts every consumed soul within the Emperor's consciousness is whether there could have been another way, whether some different choice, some alternative path might have led to humanity's survival without requiring such horror. Whether the Emperor's love for his species became so possessive, so desperate, that it transformed protection into predation. But such questions are academic now. The system exists, the necessity remains, and the hunger demands to be fed. In distant sectors of the galaxy, children are experiencing their first psychic manifestations, feeling the thoughts of others, seeing glimpses of possible futures, manifesting abilities they don't understand and can't control. They don't yet know that these abilities mark them for death, that they've already been selected by forces beyond their comprehension. They don't know that they're already walking toward Terra, toward the golden throne, toward the moment when they'll join your voice in the eternal chorus. Some of them are playing with siblings who will never understand what happened to them. Some are learning to read, or helping with family chores, or dreaming of futures they'll never live to see. All of them are innocent of any crime except being born with abilities they didn't choose. All of them are fuel for the machine that keeps humanity alive. The black ships are already turning their sensors toward these children, already calculating transport schedules and processing quotas. The great machinery of harvest is preparing to claim another generation of souls for the Emperor's eternal hunger, and you'll be watching when they arrive. You'll feel their terror, share their despair, experience their consumption as if it were your own, because now you're part of the system. Now you're complicit in the horror you once suffered. This is the final cruelty of the Golden Throne. It doesn't just consume its victims, it transforms them into participants in their own victimization. Every soul within the Emperor's consciousness becomes part of the force that draws new psykers to Terra, part of the hunger that demands constant feeding. You're not just a victim anymore. You're also a predator, complicit in the systematic murder of children just like yourself. The realization is devastating, but it's also liberating in its horrible way. If you're part of the system now, if your consciousness is integrated into the machinery of necessity, then you share responsibility for humanity's survival. Your individual death becomes part of a collective purpose that transcends personal suffering. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that has to be enough. Because the alternative, acknowledging that your death was meaningless, that the system could function without your sacrifice, that you died for nothing, is unthinkable. Better to believe in the necessity, to embrace the horror as a form of salvation, to find meaning in the very meaninglessness of your fate. Better to be a willing participant in genocide than an unwilling victim of cosmic indifference. The countdown begins again. Somewhere in the depths of the Hollow Mountain, another 1,000 psykers are settling into their holding cells, watching the display above their doors mark the hours until their consumption. Some are crying. Some are praying. Some have retreated into catatonic silence. All of them are walking the path you've walked. All of them will join the chorus you've joined. All of them will learn what you've learned, that some fates are worse than death and some necessities are worse than damnation. 23 hours and 59 minutes until the next feeding. 23 hours and 58 minutes. 23 hours and 57 minutes. The hunger never stops. The cycle never ends. The Golden Throne never rests. And tomorrow, as every day for the past 10,000 years, it will be fed. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is no peace among the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods, and the screaming of consumed children, echoing through the void forever.